Hello everybody, and happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Position to Prosper. I'm Arianne Maccabee. If this is your first time tuning in, say hey, give me a thumbs up or something. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Also, you can share and invite your followers by hitting my head of security at the bottom there. Swipe up for Droid and left for iPhone. Also, you can tune in on your computer at periscope.tv. You have the same functions to comment, give hearts as well. Okay, so we are continuing in our current series, Out of Egypt. And the whole premise of this is to get you ready for 2017. Everything and everybody cannot go with you into your next season, your new year, what have you. Okay, so there's some things that you're going to have to leave behind, some associations that you're going to need to cut off so that you can prosper in your next season. And we've been talking about the Israelites, and God sent Moses to rescue them out of Egypt, and it took them 40 years to get from Egypt to Canaan, which was the promised land. And it's typically in that wilderness time, that desert season, where we're tested, we're tried, and we go through the process. Because again, just because they got out of Egypt, God had to get Egypt out of them and reframe their hearts and their minds to know that He is their provider. All right, and they complained and they grumbled and it was hard and they wanted to go back. And a lot of times that happens to us when we leave something that is familiar, even though it's not all it's cracked up to be, whether it's a bad relationship, a bad job, and we beg God to get us out, and He does it. And then once we start moving in it, it's like, we start, encountering some opposition. It's like, oh wait, I wasn't expecting this, and we want to turn back. So when you're preparing for 2017, the promises that, God has on your life, they may not show up January 1st or 2nd or 3rd or February 1st. It might take you some time, but we don't want to get distracted and turn back, okay? I want to keep our eyes on the promise. So yesterday we talked about winning the battle within, because you will encounter some spiritual warfare when you leave your old place and as you are walking into your new. We talked about the spirit of fear, rebellion, rejection, and generational curses. So just be aware of spiritual attacks that you will encounter. All right? And your situation, they may not be the same for you as they are for somebody else, but I want you to be aware of them so that you can defeat them. A lot of times we get mad at people and situations, and it's a spiritual attack, and we waste our time fighting people, and we just need to pray. We need to seek God. We need to fast and whatever else. All right? So if you missed it, you can go back and catch the replay. Go to YouTube, go back on the Periscope feed and get caught up with that. All right, so today we're talking about grapes, grasshoppers, and giants. Grapes, grasshoppers, and giants. So we're continuing on in this series because there are going to be, again, we're dealing with a mindset here, because that's the biggest battle that you're going to have to overcome when you're trying to go from the old into the new. We say you can't put, old wine into new wineskin. So if your mindset is the same going into next year, guess what? Same results. Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I'm trying to get your mind right as we pursue our next season, our next year, okay? So just to give you a quick recap, we're going to be in Numbers 13 today. Numbers 13 verses 23 through 33. Numbers 13, 23 through 33. So write these down. Get ready to take some notes, because there's some work that you need to do, I need to do, as we continue walking through this. All right, so let's jump in here. Verse 23. So they've reached the edge of Canaan now, and I talked about yesterday they sent some spies out, one person from every tribe, to go explore the land, right? And Caleb and Joshua were like, yes, it's good, and 10 of the other ones were like, nah, we can't do this. They were afraid, all the different spiritual attacks that they were going over, but Caleb had a different spirit. So it's going to take a different spirit and a different mindset for you to walk into this new season and into the promise that God has for you. Okay, so verse 23, when they reached the valley of Eshcol, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. 2 of them carried it on a pole between them, along with some pomegranates and figs. Had to be big, right? Took 2 people to carry, and you had to put it on a pole? I don't know about that. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster, Eshcol means cluster, of grapes the Israelites cut off there. And at the end of 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. I'm going to stop right there. It took them 40 days to bring back confirmation to the rest of the people. 40 days. They couldn't Snapchat, they couldn't Instagram, they couldn't Facebook Live, they couldn't Periscope the promised land and, you know, take some selfies with the grapes and pomegranates and all that stuff. They couldn't do that. So they were all waiting, the rest of them, for 40 days for confirmation that they had actually arrived to where God said he was going to bring them. Now, I point that out because we don't want to wait 2 seconds to hear from God and get confirmation, right? They waited 40 days. We can't wait 4 minutes. We hear something and we just jump in. And sometimes we got to wait and take time and make sure that it's actually God speaking, okay? Because sometimes it could sound like God, but it's not really God. And so we need to take time out, whether it's 3 days and you need to fast or a week or whatever the case is. Make sure that you're sure. But you got to seek God in order to do that. So I'm not saying you got to wait 40 days before you make a decision. But if it's something major and, you know, something's not right in your spirit, take a time out. Take a time out and seek God until you have confirmation. All right? So 40 days. Verse 26, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. So God is faithful. Here is its fruit. So they bring proof of the promise back to the camp. Here we go. Their butt gets in the way. A lot of times it gets in our way too. Verse 28, but the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. So they're getting scared. Even though they brought back proof of the promise, they're getting afraid because of what they see. All right, verse 30, then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Again, he had a different kind of spirit. He's like, I know who God, and again, he wasn't even an Israelite, and he had more faith in God than they did. Verse 31, but the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are, and they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. So now they're getting everybody else worked up by their own fears. We haven't done that ever before, right? Like we start feeling some type of way, and then we get everybody else in a ruckus because of our own issues. And they did the same thing. So they said, the land we explore devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. All right, so we're talking about grapes, grasshoppers, and giants today. And really those 3 things are going to symbolize something in your life. And I want you to take notes and write these down, because what they are for me is going to be different for you and for somebody else. So I'm going to give you what these symbols mean first, and then we'll kind of jump into it from there. So the grapes represent the promise. The grapes represent the promise, proof of the promise. And that was in verse 27. And in verse 23, that's what he told them to do. When you go there, bring back some fruit so I can know that this is what, this is from God. So verse 23 and 27 talks about proof of the promise. So what has God promised you? What has God promised you? And if you don't know the answer to that, then you need to spend some time with God and have him reveal his promises for you. We like to quote Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans, that God has for you, plans to prosper you. Well, what does that mean? what does that look like specifically for you? For somebody else, it could be God promised them, a promotion, or God promised them, I don't know, an assignment as a missionary. Whatever the case is, God promised them some type of a blessing or calling on their life. I don't know what that is for you, but what has God promised you? Okay, and a lot of times we know what God has promised, and we see fruit of it, right? We've stepped out and we see proof. Things are starting to fall into place, confirmation left and right. But then we get a little bit scared, right? When we start facing opposition, we start questioning, is this really God? Is this really God? And so grapes represent the promise. So what has God promised you? Write that down. If you don't know, you need to go ask him what he's promised you. Okay? And the second thing is this: the grasshoppers represent our perspective. Our perspective. So when we looked at verse 33, they said, we seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. So people will look at you the way that you look at you. People will look at you the way that you look at you. So people can smell somebody that's insecure, somebody that is fearful from a mile away. They can sense it. The enemy can sense it. And that's his opportunity to go in there and just push that button, because he knows you're vulnerable, right? So your giants will respond to you how you respond to you. So if you think that you're small, if you think that you're not capable, if you think that you're not qualified, then the thing that you're up against is going to sense the same type of fear and insecurity. That's why we talked about the spirits yesterday. They are real. They are real. Spirits of fear and rebellion and rejection and insecurity. They are real, and it's an inside job. So it is your perspective. So what has your perspective been of yourself? And I got to ask you to be honest. What have you been speaking over yourself? Have you been saying that you're not qualified, that you can't do it? What are those negative, reoccurring thoughts that you have been having as you've been pursuing your promise? Because they're going to keep you from getting there, right? So what is your perspective? What has it been? What has it been? We said out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So be honest. What have you been saying? What have you been saying? What has your perspective been of yourself? And the third thing is the giants, and those represent the problems. The problems, the thing that you are encountering. So even though they had a promise there and they had fruit of it, there were people there that they were afraid of. There was an opposition in front of them that scared them. Something that they magnified over God. We never do that, right? We never make our problem bigger than our God, right? And we always say, you know what, don't tell your God how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big your God is. And it's the same situation here. So what is the problem or the opposition that you are facing? So I don't know, God may have promised you a promotion, but there's somebody already there. Somebody that you got to get through to get there, right? You need that recommendation, but push come to shove, truth be told, your manager ain't exactly your biggest fan, right? That could be your giant. That could be your giant, or some kind of financial thing. What is standing in your way? What is standing, if you're starting a business? Maybe it's a loan that you can't get from a bank. I don't know what your problem is. Your problem could be something within you, a fear or a spirit. So write that down. What is keeping you, appears to be keeping you from entering into the promise that God has on your life? And so between your promise and your problems is your perspective. Your perspective is in between the two of them, and you're going to have to decide, which one am I going to magnify? My problem or my promise? Am I going to keep my mind and my eyes on my promise, or am I going to focus on my problem? And that does not mean that you are dismissive and you're in denial and you ignore that there is a problem in front of you, because it's true, they exist, but God is bigger. God is bigger, and He is faithful. And you need some Calebs and some Joshuas in your life that can encourage you to continue walking in it, even when you feel afraid, that can remind you of what God's word says, okay? So just know that. Know that the enemy will always try to make you think that your problem is bigger, that you can't do it, that you're not qualified. But then the Holy Spirit will whisper, I got you. I got you. You can do this. And you might not be able to do it in your own strength, but guess what? God and you together, you're good. God and you together, you're fine. All right? And so that's the thing. We need the Caleb spirit, right? We need to get our Caleb spirit back. The Holy Spirit is on the inside of us. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. All right? So you're going to have to change your perspective about what it is that you are walking into, what it is that you are up against, and say, you know what? Yes, this problem, this giant is in front of me, but greater is he that's in me than he that is in the world. And keep your eyes on your promise, because God will move that giant out of your way. But you cannot be afraid. You've got to keep pressing forward. There's no need in turning back. God is with you. He'll never leave or forsake you. Right? Speak the word. You got to remind yourself. Remind yourself. So again, write down, what is the promise that's on your life? What is the promise that you're walking in towards? You can leave Egypt, but if you don't have your eyes on your promise, you're just going to be stuck. Okay? You're going to be stuck wandering. What's your current perspective? What has it been? What have you been speaking over yourself? Write them down, and then you got to put some scriptures attached to it to counter those, so that you start thinking positively and start speaking truth over yourself. And then what are the problems that you're facing? What have you been magnifying over God in your life? Okay? Get y'all ready. We're getting ready for 2017. It's going to be a good one. But again, we can't take the old into the new, and it all starts with our mind, because our behaviors reflect our beliefs. So if you don't change your beliefs, your behaviors are not going to change either. All right? So again, hope that's helpful. I always hope these are helpful. Thank you guys for sharing and commenting. Thank you for your hearts, trying to get up there in the Million Heart Club. Million Heart Club. We ain't nowhere near it yet, but I'm believing we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So thank y'all for your hearts and for sharing. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Arianne Maccabee. Also visit my website, www.ariannemaccabee.com. Also check out my first book, Destined to Fly, The Pursuit of Purpose. So I love you guys. I hope that you have a safe and happy holiday. If you're traveling, I pray traveling mercies over you. Enjoy your family. Don't eat too much. I'm going to try not to, but girl like to eat. So I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready too. So have a happy Thanksgiving. And I may pop in tomorrow. I may not. But at the very least, I will be back on Friday. So talk to you guys later. Bye.